You're listening to the Do It for Dale Hour, presented by Do It for Dale Promos. As you guys can see, we've got James Houghton here. James, how's it going, buddy?
I'm very well. Very well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic today, to be honest. Um, let's get right into it. Let's start with how'd you get into racing?
So, I guess I would be third generation. My grandfather started building race cars and racing back in the early 60s. And he was very involved with sponsoring cars and helping build cars all the way to through, probably until sometime around the late 70s and even into the 80s. My father started racing in the late 70s and he raced until the early 90s. But I was born in 84, so I wasn't, I kind of have distant memories of it, but I wasn't that involved. I was only 6 when he retired, right?
For
Um,
sure.
and so I didn't do any karting when I was young or anything like that. I didn't do any real competition events until I was, I guess, probably in my 20s. I did, my uncle took me out to a lapping day at Shannonville at the circuit track there. And he took me out when I was 16 or 17. So that'd be almost 24 years ago now. And that was a really interesting experience because I had mostly been around oval tracks. And that was really neat. And I knew that that was something that I wanted to do. Um, and but I didn't do it again very much for quite a few years. I didn't have a car to do it with, and I had some friends that were getting involved in drag racing and stuff like that, and I played around with that a little bit, and I didn't really end up going to another track day until 2007. So there was like kind of 7 year break there, and when I got back into it, I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to do it a lot more, and I was kind of hooked after that, and I started just doing casual track days, and then I started doing some of this time attack stuff where you're just trying to do the fastest lap against the clock, and you can do that with street cars, so that was really good because I didn't have a truck or a trailer or anything like that at the time, and I did mostly time attack stuff from 2009 until 2019 with some endurance circuit racing involved, and then I did a little bit of oval track stuff as well. I did some the Pro 4 modifieds that run at Flamborough and used to run at Varney a little bit. So Cliff Hodgkinson gave me the chance to drive those quite a few times, which was a really interesting experience. And the end of 2019, I sold my time attack car and I bought a TSX that I wanted to do, wheel to wheel circuit racing with. And then that's been kind of what we've been involved with ever since. Um, but during COVID, like a lot of people, got heavily involved with iRacing and kind of fell in love with the oval stuff even more. And during during a year or so, there was spending probably 4 hours a night every single night on my sim rig, and I got kind of addicted to the oval stuff even more than the road course stuff. And but I was spending a lot of money and effort and time into my TSX program, and there wasn't really anything on the horizon to drive in an oval series in Ontario. And Rich Schwarzenberg called me up in I think about August, maybe even July of 2021, and he said, "Hey, I've got this car." And I hear you're the front wheel drive guy. And he says, I know that you're not typically an oval track front wheel drive guy, but he says, I figure with the amount of experience that you have with what you've done, maybe it would translate. And so he had me come out, and he had Rodney Rutherford come out, who is kind of a staple in the front wheel drive oval track racing community in Ontario. And we both drove the car, and we both kind of agreed that it wasn't bad, but it needed some things. And I had some ideas. I at the time, wasn't I didn't have any special setup ideas or anything like that, but I just looked at the rule book. I knew that the camber wasn't anywhere close to where it was allowed to be. The tires on the right side were a little bit old. Um, I didn't think the tires were quite tall enough because it was really on the limiter and stuff like that. So he said, do you want to take it back to your shop and work on it a little bit? And I did. And we got it better. So my first week I drove it was I think it's like called the Memorial Night at Flamborough. So they normally do the two features, but that night they did the heats and the feature. I made a mistake and the heat kind of got pushed back, and I ended up driving to fourth in the feature the very first night I drove it, and I thought, well, this is kind of cool. I get into this, and the next week we put some right side tires on it, and I think I finished a second and a third, and kept working on it, kept trying to figure things out. Did a test night at Flamborough, and ended up winning the last three races of the season, including Frostoverfest. And the rest has kind of been history since then. We put a better cage in it. I'm a big advocate for safety. I feel like sometimes in the Ontario oval track community, some people are not as concerned about that as they could be. And some people are doing great and some people are, oh, it won't happen to me. And it eventually is going to happen to everyone. Everyone's going to have a bad one eventually. And you just want to be, as prepared as you possibly could be. So it was nice to put the new cage in before the 2023 season. And we had some fun. We won some specials and some races last year. And this year I was really motivated to find some more speed in it and kind of optimize it more for some of the longer tracks. And it was really good at Varney last year, but at Sunset and Flamborough it wasn't quite as strong. And we put some really, really ridiculously tall front tires on that car this year, and it's made a huge improvement. At the first year I drove that thing, it was on the limiter before the start finish line at Flamborough, and the car had pace, but it's really hard to make a pass because you're coming out of the corner, you're pulling on someone really well because the thing's, such short geared. And then you're trying to make the pass and they're driving away from you down into that, the end. So that's made a huge improvement. And for Tuesday night at Flamborough, we are going even taller. And I think people will be not in belief of how tall the Ray front tire is going to be for Tuesday night for the Gold Rush at Flamborough. So it's going to be pretty fun. I think it's every time we've gone taller with the front tires on that car, though, it's worked a little bit better. That's not a secret. I'm not afraid to say that because people will keep on commenting. It's like, how tall of a tire are you going to put on that thing? And it's like, well, I'm going to keep going taller until it either doesn't fit or it's off the limiter. So it's been pretty fun. We just did the big Dash for Cash race at Sobel, and and that was probably the best the car has ever been. I I refuse to accept that it can't be better, and I keep on looking for any sort of way with different tire combinations, different air pressure combinations, everything like that, and it just keeps getting a little bit better and a little bit better. And the class is so competitive that sometimes finding a half a tenth even in this pure stock division, bone stock division, fun stock division, whatever you want to call it, a half a tenth can be big sometimes. So we found some speed before Sobel, and it was a heck of a night.
For sure. Um, kind of off topic, sort of on topic. Question here. Out of all the series, circuit, oval, which one would be your most favorite one to race, and which one would you want to run more of?
Um, I think that is a tough question, and I think it depends on the weekend, maybe. Sometimes you can go to the track and have such a great time, and the pure stock division is very near and dear to my heart, but sometimes it can be really frustrating. The Grid Life GLTC racing that I do with the TSX, it can be amazing, but it can be super, super frustrating. Sometimes we were at Mid Ohio a few weeks ago and we had prepared as hard as we possibly could for this event and had everything absolutely perfect. Um, and we had never had a pole in that series before. It's hard to get a pole in that series because we often have 50 to 60 car fields all in the same class. There's a lot of people trying really, really hard out there. And we were fastest in practice. We qualified P1, and immediately the transmission failed in race number one. And we had that style of gearbox is prone to failure, but we've tried to life cycle parts out in the transmission that we know are a problem, and we've spent a lot of effort trying to make sure that the stuff could be as fresh as it possibly could in there to avoid this. And the fourth gear broke and absolutely carnaged everything in that transmission, and that was a transmission that had half the runtime of what some of the other ones we had used on. So um, it's it's can be so frustrating. We put our backup transmission in, and we ended up setting the overall Grid Life GLTC lap record at Mid Ohio, but like from back in 50th position or something like that. So to say, I've been lucky to do so much. I've even done some rally cross both in the summer and even in the winter, and some snow and stuff like that. That's really fun. The pure stock is really fun when people are, controlling their uh amount of contact that's happening. GLTC can be really fun when the car is not braking. I think that I still think that one of the most fun things that I have done is in the Grid Life series, not every weekend, but often, um, they do what's called a top 10 shootout. And they got that from the V8 Supercar series. Well, I should say they got that, but they got the idea from that. And after race two of the weekend, they take the top 10 cars in race number two. We usually do 4 races per weekend. They take the top 10 cars, and you get to do one flying lap by yourself on track, and they use those times to regrid for race number three. And that's I really like racing under pressure, and I think there can't be much more pressure than you have one lap. If you fail, you might have won race number two, and if you make one bobble, you might start 10th for race number three. Um, I think that that's probably one of the most fun things that we do. They usually do it at events where there's a lot of spectators, where the live stream is, really well followed and stuff like that. So it's there's a lot of pressure, and when anytime you can have something like that, I think that it can bring out the best in people. Sometimes it can bring out the worst in people. I think for myself, I thrive under that pressure, and I'm kind of lucky for that. So I enjoy it a lot. I like when we do qualifying for pure stock races. I just wish that it wasn't. I know it's hard because usually you do qualifying for a bigger race where there might be 30 or 40 cars there, and it'd be fun to not do like the group qualifying like they do, to do an APC style qualifying or something like that for pure stock would be really, really cool. But that's a hard thing to do, because if you were giving everyone 2 laps and you had 40 cars there, it would be a bit of a disaster. But maybe we can maybe someone's listening, and we can arrange something like that at some point, because I think that letting that one car on track have their moment could be really neat. And if there was a big field, maybe you only get one flyer, and man, there'd be a lot of pressure if you were qualifying and did one flyer, and say, what, for this race, usually they roll a couple of dice or something like that, but say, hey, you're going to get one flyer, and we're not doing a dice roll. Man, that would be a lot of pressure for something like that, but I think it would be great.
100%. I agree. That last question kind of leads me into this next one. Of any of this two-parter, sorry. On the circuit side and oval side, what class would you want to run that you've never run before?
Um, I think rather than trying to choose one, I think I'll choose one from the oval and one from the circuit. I probably, like most, would love to do an APC series race at some point. Um, I don't think that that's off the table to do it someday. I don't. I worry that um the experience would just make me want to do it more. Um, but I still would like to experience that someday. I think I'd probably have to do a couple of pro late races that are not APC series races, just weekly first to kind of get my feet wet. But I would like to do one of those someday, because I think that the challenge is incredible. Um, and then as far as a circuit racing race, I don't know. Maybe there's so many great ones to do a I mean, it doesn't have to be realistic. To do a NASCAR race on a circuit at some point would be cool, but I don't expect that to happen. To do a Trans Am TA2 race would be maybe more possible someday. And that the it's another field that's super large, like the GLTC series that we run. They often get 50 cars to some of their races, and the cars are really really close together. The drivers are really really close together, and I think that that's what I enjoy. I don't really like seeing a blowout. I'd rather see everyone stacked up, really on top of each other. Not on top of each other like at Flamborough on Saturday night, but you know what I mean.
Oh, for sure. My buddy was the one that was on top of the six car in the pure stocks.
Yeah, yeah, Leo.
Yeah,
Yeah. I got wrenched for. I just saw that this morning, and I thought, oh man, that's pretty brutal.
yeah. He is. I messaged him this morning when I seen it. The driver is okay
That's good. That's what we like to hear.
for sure. That kind of leads me into my next question here. What is one of your greatest accomplishments and why is it so special to you?
Hmm. That's a tricky one. I'm gonna say, excuse me, sorry. I'm gonna say staying involved in racing as long as I have. I'm not going to say necessarily one particular race, but I'm going to say staying involved in racing as long as I have. It's super easy to get burnt out. I've been lucky to have a great support system around me, helping me, keep this going. The guys from Unit 2 Fabrication and Eric Levine at Levine Motorsports have been integral to allowing me to keep racing all these years, as well as my parents who have helped financially and helped being at the track every weekend that I'm racing, and and helped with ability to take time off to go racing. My wife is a superhero. That has been amazing as well, and I've been doing a lot for a long time, a lot of traveling in the United States and stuff like that, and it makes it super super hard to keep going sometimes. And at some point, I might decide to tone down the U.S. circuit racing a little bit, because it really chews up your, it used to be saying it chews up your summer, but and our first event was in March and our last one is in October this year, so that's not a summer anymore. That's over half of the year. So that winning a weekend in the Grid Life GLTC series, I think that is one of the hardest things to do in an amateur level circuit racing um, series in the United States, or maybe even anywhere. We've had lots of pros and ex pros and everything like that come out and race with us. Guys that have raced in IMSA, guys that have raced in ARCA, guys that have raced in all sorts of different things have come and ran in that Grid Life series, and some have excelled, some have struggled. Some have spent time in P20 in a P50 or in a 50 car field. And so to win a weekend in that, which we've done a few times now, is pretty incredible. Um, and then I think as far from an oval track standpoint, I think winning Frost Overfest in 2021 in my only, I guess it was my fourth weekend in that car, and my fourth weekend in a front wheel drive oval track car as well. I'll always be pretty proud of that. Um, I'm not gonna say that I think that car, the way that gearing was, especially back then, could have come through the field in any sort of invert. The car was fast, but we qualified P2 to Joe Lawrence, and he rolled a two that started us on pole, and I think that was very good. We could have passed some cars for sure, but it was the way that car was set up at the time. It was super hard to complete a pass. We've improved that a lot since then, and it makes it a lot easier to race. But that was kind of a very specific circumstance that allowed us to do that at the time. Just super fast on lap time. It came out of the corner super hard, what made it easy to defend on corner exit. And then you just kind of had to run the bottom on the way into the next corner and hope he wasn't going to go all the way around the outside. And I think in that race, I think that was I can't remember if that was 40 or 50 laps, but I think Joe did like 15 or 20 laps faster than my fastest lap in that race, but it wasn't enough to get around just the way the car was working. So that was pretty cool. And if anyone knows gearing or anything like that from track to track, uh, we ran the same front tires there back then. We hadn't kind of experienced going bigger and bigger and bigger at that point. We ran the same front tires at Flamborough to win Frostfest as we do at Varney now, and it's still slightly on the limiter at Varney. So that gives you an idea of how out to lunch the gearing was for Flamborough if it's on the limiter at Varney and you're racing there at Flamborough like that. But we made it work, and so I would say that that would be my my most proud moment probably there. Sobel, I was quite proud of our win at Sobel, um, but it felt different. That was more proud of car setup and just getting it working perfectly. I didn't feel like I had to necessarily do something over the top fantastic driving wise in that event because the car was just so dialed. Whereas at Frostoberfest, when you've got Joe Lawrence breathing down your neck for an entire race, that's he's a very talented race car driver. He's an APC champion. He's a Frostoberfest champion. When you can hold him off 4 weeks into driving a car, that's I'm proud of that one.
For sure. And that last question leads me into this next one. What is one of your worst memories in racing? And if you could go back in time, what would you have done differently to change the outcome?
July 2022, I was racing my TSX at New Jersey Motorsports Park, and we were struggling with some issues that weekend. It was super hot. The track was super dusty. And like I say, we had had some issues with the car, and that had put us further back in the field. And making, I was attempting to make a move that I probably shouldn't have. And the field kind of stacked up on the outside, and I went to dive to the inside, and I didn't even dive to the inside later. I didn't even get on the brakes later than I would have on the normal line. But because it was so dusty and so hot that weekend, as soon as I got offline and went for the brakes, it just locked up, and I tried to get out of the brakes more and more and more and more and more, and I couldn't get them to unlock. And one of my friends that I raced with, Eric Jensen, he tows from Texas every event. Most of our events are in the Midwest or East Coast, so he has crazy long tows. And I completely took out Eric Jensen when he was having a great weekend, one of his probably best weekends to that point. And I've never felt so uh, like I didn't deserve to be there. I think that contact in all forms of racing gets brushed to the side so much and ignored too often. And I think that all of our racing would be better without it. And you know, a bump a bump going into the corner to make a little gap, that's one thing. I don't love it. I still think that if you can pass without touching someone, that's the best, but I'm not going to get upset about that. But there's too many people spun out. There's too many incidents like last night. There's too many incidents where people are just not saying, you know what, I'll just get the guy in the next corner. And the organizer of I should say the motorsports director of the Grid Life series, which is a dear friend of mine, Adam Jabay, he always says in his drivers meeting, give your friend a room, give your friend some space, give them a lane. The worst thing that could happen is you have a great race. And most of these races, some of them are for money, but big money. But most of them, most of the weekly races that are happening, especially in the pure stock division, are for what, 100, 150, $200 to win or something like that. It's not going to change your life. Whether you get second or third in that race, you're not going to feel any different on Sunday the next day. Give your friend a room, give your fellow competitor a space, a lane, and you might have a great race, and that person might not be your enemy afterwards. I feel like sometimes we have a lot of rivalries that happen in oval track racing. There's groups that don't talk to other groups and stuff like that, and I'd love to see less of that. We do a pretty good job in Grid Life of kind of having everyone friends with everyone. Everyone is in a messenger group chat, and everyone kind of jokes and bugs and has fun with everyone, on a daily basis. And I think it would be cool if we could get something like that going in the Ontario Pure Stock community, because we have like 200 and something people in that group chat now. It's not that it's like, oh well, that's a smaller thing. It's not. There's over 200 people in there. There's some people that just kind of watch and laugh and whatever, and there's some people that are giving it to each other on a daily basis. But I think sometimes that open line of communication helps keep people a little bit more honest, and those friendships, I think, help keep the driving a little bit cleaner sometimes. And it just helps make people think, hey, this guy's my buddy. I don't want to turn him. I don't want to hook him into the wall or anything like that. So I'd love to see. I'd love to see. I'm not going to sit here and preach and say I know exactly how to do it, but I would love to see the Ontario Pure Stock community be more, not even friendly, but like actual friendships between groups that are currently maybe struggling a little bit, um, you know, with hard feelings and stuff like that. I think it would make the racing better. And I think it would be, less people having to fix torn up cars before the next week. But I think overall it's pretty good. We have a lot of um, you know, a lot of races. The last time we raced at Flamborough, there was some small spins and incidents and stuff like that, but we ran 225 lap features and we ran them green start to finish. That was, I don't know, that was about a month and a half ago now or something like that. So I think that's pretty good. When you see some of the other divisions run and you see a lot more cautions, I think overall it's pretty impressive what the pure stock community does, especially considering they are most likely the cheapest cars to fix. So people, sometimes you think, well, they don't care that much, but uh, there's a surprising amount of give and take, I think.
For sure. Um, I've got to ask, what do you do to prepare for a race mentally and physically?
Uh, some people, and I'm impressed the people that do it, that feel the need to to really get themselves in the right place mentally. I see people in circuit racing sometimes sitting, beside their car or in their trailer or whatever, um, and I'll see them, moving their hands and moving their feet, and they're like driving a lap before they even get in the car. And I think that that's great if that's what you need to do. I think that the fact that they realize that they need to do that and are willing to do that is great. Um, I'll respond to your question with a joke from when we were at Carolina Motorsports Park this year. And one of my friends, Jacob from my iRacing team, was coming down. I was going to meet him for the first time. And he's raced late models, dirt late models, very high level of karting. He decided he was going to do some oval iRacing about a year and a half ago. His iRating is now over 9,000 on iRacing. Like he's like one of the top. I don't know what that make him top 30 drivers on iRacing. He's just like, yeah, I think I'll do this. And a year later, he's 9,000 iRating, which I don't know. The people that will know, about that. Um, and he was messaging me when we were on our way down, and he's like, I just don't want to get in your way. He's like, I just want to know what you need out of your people around you before a race starts. He's like, do you need to be distracted? Do you need quiet time? He's like, what do you need to get in the right mental place? And I'm like, Jacob, I can't wait for you to come to the track, because you're going to see that it is a free for all with me before a race starts. And he came on the Saturday, and on the Friday before race one, we had qualified pretty well. I think we had qualified P2 there, and we had pitted right beside where the car staged to pull out on the track. And we had been kind of up late the night before, and we had been working with some issues with the car. I had gotten very little sleep, and then I realized about 10 minutes before this race started that I hadn't eaten anything that day. And my mom had made some lasagna, and it was just sitting inside the RV. And I thought, as long as you're like in starting to get in the car at the 5 minute call, for myself, that's like plenty of time. And I was literally like a 20-second walk from the car, because I had taken it to pre-grid early. And my friend Mitch, the owner of Unit 2 Fab, was there. And at the 8 minute mark before we rolled for the for race number one of the weekend, I was shoveling lasagna in my face as fast as I possibly could. And he's like, I so wish, because I had told him about what Jacob had said. He's like, I so wish that Jacob could be standing here right now, seeing you shoveling lasagna in your face 8 minutes before this race starts. Everyone's out there trying to get in the right mental place and everything like that. And he's like, you are shoveling this in your face right now. So to answer your question, uh during the time between practice and the race started at Sobel a couple of weeks ago, my boys were there. It was nice though. The whole family came up for that one. We went to the beach and stuff like that. And we were playing soccer before the race started. So to answer your question, I might be eating lasagna. I might be playing soccer with my kids, but I try not to think about it too much. Not because I'm trying not to think about it, but just because I don't feel like um that's what I necessarily require. My mental preparation for a race happens in the shop 3 days before we go to the race, and making sure that everything feels good and everything is optimized and everything is the way it should be. And if I uh, if I have the car in a good place and I feel good about it, I'm not thinking about it much until I, am rolling on pace laps.
Just before I let you go here, if you could choose one walkout song for Pure Stocks, your circuit racing, what would it be?
One walkout song. Uh, because my kids love it, and I don't even know how they heard it the first time, but they love it. I Want to Rock by Twisted Sister. I think that would be a good one.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Well, James, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. We've got to do this again soon.
I would love to. I would love to. Hopefully we have a few good things to talk about over the next couple of months as playoff season starts in the short track racing world around Ontario. I have some conflicts that are kind of depressing with my circuit racing stuff. It'd be nice to be able to make everything work, but we have a few that I think we can make. We're going to make the Tuesday race at Flamborough, and we're planning on going to the next big race at Sobel on the Labor Day weekend. We're planning on going. We can't make it to the Corey Eccles at Varney, but the week before that, I apologize. I can't remember what that Memorial Night is for, but that's the weekend after Labor Day, I think. And then we're gonna try to make it to Fall Velocity, and we're gonna almost definitely make it to Frost Overfest. So we've got some fun ones coming. So maybe it'd be fun to talk again later in the fall, and fingers crossed. Hopefully these next few races go well.
For sure, James. And speaking of solo, I just want to say my thoughts go out to the family of the one of the co-owners of Sobel, as Jeff passed away this morning.
Oh my, I didn't realize that. That's terrible.
Yeah, I just seen that on Facebook before we started. Uh, give me a
Jeff is one
second.
of the co-owners.
Uh, I shared it. Give me a second here. Yeah, Jeff Cassidy is one of the co-owners.
I met one of the co-owners, but I'm not sure who I met when I was up there, but whoever I met was a super nice guy. So that's that's terrible news.
For sure. Well, James, like I said, it's been a pleasure. Got to do this again.
That would be great. I really appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Anytime, buddy. Well, that was the Do It for Dale hour, presented by Do It for Dale Promos. Thanks for watching.